HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
Dunn looking to get it in. Dunn into Colin Sexton. Game time three in the air. No good! Oh, from the right corner off the heel of the rim. And the Dubs avoid overtime. And just by the skin of their teeth, head into the All-Star break with a winning record.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
That was Kevin Dana doing a great job filling in for Tim Roy on the call here on Warriors Radio on 95.7 The Game. And he's right. Just by the skin of their teeth, the Warriors survive in Utah. 140-137. Welcome in. It's Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you, trying to sort through what was arguably, probably the wildest game of the season. What I can guarantee you, despite the fact that there's a ton of contenders, this probably would have been the worst loss of the season for the Warriors if they found a way to lose it down the stretch. And you could maybe argue they deserve to, the way that they played the final 6 minutes of this game. That potential game-tying three from Colin Sexton, often inbound with a couple of seconds left. He managed to get wide open, no one even contesting the shot. The Warriors got a little bit lucky. They'll certainly take it. It rims out, and the Warriors, they end the unofficial first half of the season with a win. And as you heard Kevin Dana say, now above 500 are the Warriors as they go into the All-Star break at 27-26. All right, welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Again, Mark Randy with you. We got to try to sort through this mess because it was a mess. Give me a call, 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line. Shout out to the 510 already chiming in as well. And I'm keeping an eye on our YouTube chat, as always, powered by the First NorCal Credit Union. You can visit that and be part of the chat, which is always a ton of fun. YouTube.com/957 The Game. I see Dublin Marge. I see GSW Vera. I see a couple of others as well in there as well. So let me know your thoughts any of those three ways. Give us a call, the Comcast Business text line, or the YouTube chat, again, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I think the best way to recap this game, first of all, we need to mention how it started, which was Klay Thompson coming off of the bench for the first time since his rookie season. He had, in 727 consecutive games played, they'd all been starts. 727 consecutive starts for Klay Thompson. The last time he played in a game that he did not start, March 11th, 2012. So we got to go back nearly 12 full seasons since the last time, 12 full years since the last time Klay played in a Warriors game that he did not start. March 11th, 2012. And through three quarters, it looked like the decision of the season for Steve Kerr and for Klay Thompson. I mean, through three quarters, Klay Thompson just simply could not miss. Off the bench, again, for the first time since March of 2012, Klay Thompson, he had, through three quarters, 35 points. He was 13 for 18 from the field. He made 7 of 11 threes. And he was at his hottest in the third quarter when he scored 18 points in that quarter alone in only 6 minutes of action. He played half of the third quarter and scored 18 points in that time, 6 of 7 from the field in the third, 4 of 5 from downtown, and things were looking great for the Warriors. Through three quarters, they had a decent-sized lead. After three quarters, the Warriors were up by 19 points, 120-101, and then the fourth quarter was a mess for the Warriors. They get outscored by 15 points, 35-20 in the fourth. They had a 13-point lead at 130-117 with 6.5 left in the fourth quarter. 13-point lead, 6.5 left in the fourth, and it comes down to the final moments. I know the Warriors earned, I don't know if earn's the right word. The Warriors escaped Utah with a win today, but the larger, idea, theme surrounding this team that they can't close games, that was upheld today. The Warriors eventually won this game, but they proved, like they have time and time again this season, that they can't close games, or at the very least, they have a very, very, very difficult time doing it. And the fourth quarter was relatively ugly, and it's kind of interesting because you feel like when the Warriors have moments like these, where they just can't take care of the ball. They're turning the ball over left and right. It's turning into buckets every single time. If you look at just the fourth quarter, the Warriors only turned the ball over twice, believe it or not. Only twice, believe it or not. But the defense, just so incredibly porous, and it was that way for most of this game, but specifically the final half of the fourth quarter, it was not good for the Warriors defensively. And we can get into that. This team has serious defensive issues, specifically when Klay Thompson is not in the starting lineup. And I know Klay is not the defender that he once was, but when you're trotting out there Steph Curry and Brandon Pajemski, it's not going to be pretty defensively most nights. When you're already small on the front end, when you're starting Draymond Green at the 5 and Jonathan Kuminga at the 4, and then your two guards are Steph Curry and Brandon Pajemski, it's going to be difficult for you to compete night in and night out on the defensive end. And for all of Klay Thompson's shortcomings shooting the ball this season, and I know he's not the same perimeter defender that he once was, he has kind of turned into a pretty good defender down low in the post against taller guys. So I think he does help the Warriors on that side of the basketball. But it was very clear, no matter who was out there in this one, I mean, really neither team were interested in defending. It wasn't just defense optional. Defense was actively discouraged in this game. It felt like both these teams were already mentally at the All-Star break. No one was competing on the defensive end. I mean, the Warriors at halftime had made 15 threes. The Jazz had made 14. They combined for 29 made threes in the first half of this game. Again, defense not just optional. It was actively discouraged. It felt like both teams were ready or were already on the All-Star break. And then the fourth quarter rolled around, and it seemed like the Warriors were already 4 margaritas deep in Cabo during the All-Star break. Like, it was just a chaotic fourth quarter. It was ugly. It was not necessarily a ton of turnovers, but it was turnovers in the worst possible moments. The Warriors, after a wild sequence with about, 5 minutes left, a wild sequence, maybe more like 3 minutes left. A wild sequence, the ball bouncing around left and right. The Warriors ultimately come up with it, and there's 2 Utah Jazz players on the ground after failing to retrieve the basketball. So the Warriors on the other end have a 5-on-3. They could push it to a 10-point lead. It was an 8-point advantage at the time. Kuminga throws a pass up the court, easily intercepted. It turns into a Markkanen 3, and instead of a 10-point lead, an 11-point lead, it's only a 5-point lead. The momentum continues to build, and there were so many of those chaotic moments, untimely turnovers, unable to get defensive rebounds. The Jazz lived on the offensive boards in the fourth quarter. It's a big reason they got back into this game. And yeah, the Warriors escaped with a win, but they proved once again, as they have a lot of times this season, they just simply cannot close ball games. And it makes no sense considering how this team is constructed. I know they do rely a lot on youth. I mean, Pajemski started today. Jonathan Kuminga has been starting for a while. Those are 2 relatively young guys. But on a team that has Stephen Curry, that has Draymond Green, that has Klay Thompson, all who closed this game, by the way, despite the fact that Klay did not start, you have Andrew Wiggins, who did not close, by the way, tonight for the Warriors. You have all these veteran pieces, and you were unable to close basketball games. It's one of the bigger mysteries of this basketball season. Like, what is it about this Warriors team that just causes them to play so chaotic in fourth quarters when they have leads specifically? Like, we've seen them play close games and play fine, but it's almost like, all right, Warriors up by 15 going into the fourth. The opponent has them right where they want them. Like, what is it about this Warrior team that lends them to be so difficult in fourth quarters. And I mean that in a bad way, not difficult to play against, just so difficult for them to play their style of basketball when they had played well through three quarters, and then suddenly everything hits the fan, and in the fourth quarter, they're hanging on for dear life, and oftentimes they've let games like this slip away, but this time they managed to find a way to win. I want to steal from someone who tweeted at me during this game. Shout out to @StackingDubs. Says, for all the encouraging losses the Warriors have had, they deserve to escape with a depressing win. I think that's very well said. This was a win, but it didn't really feel like a win. And it's kind of the opposite of the way we felt about a lot of Warrior games this season, where you see them play well for 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters, and ultimately you were encouraged, but then they just do pointless, bad things down the stretch, and they ultimately lose the basketball game. So, again, shout out to @StackingDubs on Twitter. All the encouraging losses the Warriors have had this season, they deserve to escape with the depressing win, and that's a really, really good way to sum up this basketball game, because it was a win. It could have easily been a loss, and you don't leave this game feeling too good about yourselves, but at the end of the day, it's a win, and you're now over 500 as you go to the All-Star break. A much-needed break for the Warriors as they get a time to rest up. They have been traveling nonstop like crazy over the last couple of weeks, and now they get to recoup, to gather themselves and get ready for a stretch down the end of the regular season that hopefully is more successful than the first half of the season. All right, it's Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you after a wild Warriors win. The final score in Utah today, 140-137. The Jazz, they had a potential game-tying three from the corner in the final seconds that missed. Colin Sexton off an inbound with a couple of seconds left. Managed to get wide open, and he missed it. And the Warriors dodged a bullet there, and they escaped Salt Lake City with a win. All right, out to the phone lines we go on Warriors Wrap-Up. If you want to be part of the show, give me a call, 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line. And up first here on Warriors Wrap-Up is Ray in San Rafael. Ray, what's up? You're on 95.7 The Game. How you doing tonight, Ray?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm just happy to see that they won. But what I find distressing is that if you shoot the ball with 15 seconds left on the clock, on the shot clock, and you miss it, that's a turnover if they don't get the rebound. And so, Coach Adelman back in the day, he said, if you don't like to play defense, hold on to the ball a little longer. Okay? And he's like, that was so smart. I coach the kids. And I told them, you got to pass the ball. You got to create angles, tic-tac-toe, but you can't do it with, in 3 or 4 seconds. You got to be able to pass the ball around a little bit. So I think, they had 2 turnovers, but if you look at the way they play in a way that they can come back from a bad drought during the game. But at the end of the game, you can't come back from a drought. You're done. So that's the problem with the Warriors, I think.
Yeah, Ray, I mean, I'm with you. Sometimes watching the Warriors end of games is just like, take a deep breath, calm down, figure things out, kill a little bit of clock, make the defense work for it, and it'll take care of a lot of your problems. I think back to it was the game the week after Christmas, because the Warriors were in Denver on Christmas. Then during that 7-game homestand, the Warriors played Denver again, and they had I think it was a 16-point lead, maybe even an 18-point lead with like 6.5 minutes left. 6.5 minutes left. You led by 18 points over Denver, and ultimately you lose that game in regulation. That's an advantage where if you just take the 24-second shot clock violation every possession, you probably win the game. You probably win the game if you just do that every single time down the court. Now, you could just take a corner 3 at the shot clock buzzer every time down, and maybe you make a couple, and you're better off that way. But the point is, the Warriors have been in situations where the opponents had little to no chance to win a game, to come back, to make it competitive. And through the Warriors' mistakes, their over-eagerness, they allowed opposing teams to get back into it. And on this conversation, I think back to that game against Denver earlier this season. I also think back, I don't know how many of you guys out there remember this game, but I will never forget this basketball game. The 2013 Western Conference second round of the playoffs. So it was the first year the Warriors made the playoffs in the Steph, Klay, and Draymond era. It was back when Mark Jackson was the head coach. And the Warriors had just upset the Denver Nuggets in the first round. The Nuggets were the 3, the Warriors were the 6, and then as a result, the Warriors got to take on the San Antonio Spurs, who would go on to win to win the Western Conference, and they would lose that year to the Heat in the NBA Finals. But the Warriors in Game 1 in San Antonio had a 16-point lead with like 4 minutes left. 16-point lead with 4 minutes left. It was Steph Curry who was going crazy in that game, and you're like, oh my God, the Warriors, this young team that we know nothing about, just upstart team, upset the Nuggets. They're going to go in and upset Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan and Tony Parker in Game 1. And then, Jarrett Jack took a 3 early in the shot clock. Richard Jefferson did the same thing. Kent Bazemore made a mistake. And you're making all these mistakes early in the shot clock when all you had to do was kill clock, and San Antonio has no chance to come back and win the game. I know that's a story from 11 years ago now, but it is, I think, it means something to this Warrior team because they are still suffering from those issues at times. And tonight was one of those days where it just was. It was haphazard. There was no rhythm for the Warriors offensively, and sometimes you get into those chaotic moments and you just got to take a deep breath, as our caller was talking about. You got to just calm it down for a minute, realize you're in a fantastic position. You've got a big lead. Utah is the team in trouble. Do not play into their hands. Calm down, dribble the ball a little bit, set up the offense, get a good shot. Klay's been on fire. You trust Steph in fourth quarters and big moments. He's been the best clutch scorer in the NBA this season. Just calm down a little bit. Yeah, I'm looking at our YouTube chat right now, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Bandit says, run the ball. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Run the ball. When you got a lead in the fourth quarter of a football game, kill clock. Run the ball. Run the ball. Yeah, Sterling's got a tear running down his face right now. Kyle Shanahan, are you listening? Run the damn ball, right? No, but it's what the Warriors needed to do in this game. It's what they've needed to do all season when they've had leads in the fourth quarters. And I know the Warriors a lot in the Steph era have kind of thrived on that chaos. Steve Kerr has always called it controlled chaos. It's not been controlled chaos this year. It's just been chaos, period. And it's been allowing opponents to get back into basketball games. Tonight, it did not cost the Warriors a win, but it's cost them like 3, 4, 5 wins this season. And they've got to learn this lesson, because if they don't learn this lesson, it's going to cost them another win or 2 or 3 down the stretch of the regular season. And maybe is a reason they don't make the playoffs. Maybe it's a reason they don't make the play-in. They got to learn this lesson. And to this point, they have not learned it, despite the fact that they did pick up a win today in Utah. They absolutely have to learn that lesson if they're going to be at all a serious player in the Western Conference. We do got to talk about Klay Thompson and what he did off the bench. I thought he had a really interesting comment to Fitz and Buki on the NBC Sports Bay Area television broadcast at halftime after he had a great first half. We will get to that in just a little bit. But let's go back out to the phone lines here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. It's Mark Randy with you. We're reacting to the Warriors' 140-137 win over the Jazz to close out the unofficial first half of their season. The Warriors will go into the All-Star break one game over at 27-26. All right, back to the phone lines we go. Up next is D from D.C. D, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. D, how you doing?
Mark, how you doing, man?
I mean, I'm trying to catch my breath from that game. That fourth quarter was wild, D.
Sure was. But thank God we came out with a W. My goodness, can you imagine losing 2 games back-to-back after leading with double digits throughout the game? That would be devastating, man. But I'm happy to see that Klay made the decision Kerr and Klay came together and decided it would be best for him to come off the bench, which was a great decision because Klay came out and started shooting the ball with vigor. He did his things, and if it weren't because of his production, we probably would have lost the game because Steph had a terrible game. Regarding the conversation you were having as far as losing the lead, etc., the Warriors has a discipline problem, man, and this has been an issue for years. And I truly believe that Kerr actually encourages the undisciplinedness based on the fact that he does not stand up to demand certain things on the court. He's undisciplined with his rotation. How in the world are you going to be the smallest team in the league? You face playing versus tall 7-footers, but you have to decide the role with Looney, who can't even jump a half an inch off the ground, or better yet, Saric, who can't even defend his own shadow. That just does not make any sense, man. The undisciplinedness, in my opinion, that starts from the top, and then it transfers down to the players. Because if you, as the coach, you're not able to maintain a certain level of disciplinedness, the players themselves, they're gonna copy it, and then they're gonna start throwing games away like they've been doing all throughout the season. Anyways, I'm so glad the half has come, and we are half and half now. So hopefully, moving forward, a few things will be changed, and then we'll be in a positive. It will be a positive step for the entire organization moving forward. All right, man, let me hang up and listen to you guys from the other side.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the call as always. Yeah, Warriors now 27-26 as they go into the All-Star break, 1 game over 500, which I think if you would have asked Warrior fans 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they would have taken that. Of course, they would have. But the way that last night ended it kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and you add in the way this fourth quarter went. Despite the fact that it was a win, this doesn't feel as sweet as I think you thought it might be if you were asked or told 2 weeks ago that the Warriors would be over 500 at the All-Star break. But nonetheless, they are 27-26. I think D does bring up a good point about some of the lineup, the rotation decisions today. I thought it was a little bit odd, especially considering the way the fourth quarter was going. We talked about some of the turnovers, and I know that's like a buzzword around the Warriors is the turnovers. The number of turnovers weren't necessarily terrible today. The Warriors only committed 13 turnovers as a team. If you were to ask Steve Kerr, Steve, would you accept 13 turnovers per game? He would say absolutely, unequivocally, yes. Give me 13 turnovers every single time. We will win more basketball games than we lose. Way more basketball games than we lose. But for the Warriors, it was the kind of turnovers they were committing. They almost always led to buckets on the other end. How about this? On the 13 Warriors turnovers, the Jazz turned it into 29 points. 13 turnovers turned into 29 points. That's more than 2 points per turnover. How is that possible? That is incredible efficiency. What does that tell you? It's live ball turnovers turning into wide open jumpers, turning into fast break dunks, turning into and ones. The Warriors only committed 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter. They led to 6 points. Both times the Warriors turned the ball over in the fourth, Utah scored and got 3 points each time. And the one that sticks out maybe more than anything else was the one I mentioned earlier. The Warriors up by 8, like 3 minutes left. They have a 5-on-3 after a mad scramble for the ball. Kuminga has the ball, tries to push it up the floor, makes a very bad decision, throws it right to the defense. They get a steal, turns into a mark-and-in 3. Instead of a 10-point lead, it's a 5-point lead. The momentum continues, and suddenly you're thinking that you might lose this game. That was just one of only 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter, but the worst kinds of turnovers that directly lead to points on the other side. But to get back to D's point, I was a little troubled by some of the rotation decisions because it was clear the Warriors just could not grab a rebound in the fourth quarter. You pair that with the defensive issues of the Steph, Klay, Podziemski lineup, you had to try something else. It was not working defensively. You were getting no rebounds. You closed with Podziemski over Jonathan Kuminga. So your lineup at the very end of the game was Steph, Podziemski, Klay, Wiggins, and Draymond Green. You were already small when Kuminga is in alongside Wiggins. And now you're going even smaller up against Markkanen and Walker Kessler and all these big athletic bodies. It was not working for the Warriors. I think they needed a change, and it didn't happen. I'm seeing a lot on the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. Also on the YouTube chat, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I'm seeing it from Mickey right here. TJD should have been in. Trace Jackson Davis. I'm not going to argue with you, Mickey. I think that would have been a very good addition to the lineup. I guarantee you that the Jazz would not have gotten as many offensive rebounds down the stretch as they did. I mean, the offensive rebounding was one of the main reasons they were in this game late. I mean, you look at the fourth quarter box score from just the fourth quarter in this game when Utah outscored the Warriors 35-20. They had 9 offensive rebounds in the quarter. 9 offensive rebounds in the quarter. 9 of them. 9 rebounds. They had 21 total rebounds in the fourth quarter. You got to put a little bit of size in there. You have to. Ultimately, it did not cost the Warriors this win, but it nearly did. In addition to other things, this isn't solely on Kerr. I mean, again, we spent the first 20 minutes talking about just how frustrating the chaotic nature of the Warriors are when they have a lead. Like, Steph, Klay, Dre, take a breath. Calm things down. You've been here before. You've won 4 championships. Deep breath. Exhale. You're in control of this game. Slow it down, and you'll be fine. And maybe it's also on Steve Kerr. In fact, it is. It's part of his job to maybe call a timeout when you feel things pulling away from you. Change up the rotation. Change up the lineup if it's not working for you. At a certain point, you also just got to trust your veterans. And the veterans let you down for a lot of that fourth quarter as well. But I'm with you, D, and I'm with all you guys on the YouTube chat. It seemed like this could have been a game where TJD could have helped a little bit because Kevon Looney was relatively ineffective in this game. In fact, did Looney even get into this game? In the box score, he's got 0 seconds played, but it does say that he was not a DNP. He got in? Yeah, he got in, but did not play really at all. So you were set on not playing Kevon Looney. TJD seemed like the natural answer for the Warriors. All right, back to the phone lines we go. 888-957-9570. Up next is Junior in Pacifica. Junior, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the heads up. So after the 49ers loss, the only way I was able to get back to sleeping at night, because it was thrilling and it was a disaster, was to think about the importance of sports in life. So the call tonight was really good that way. I really enjoyed it. So there was some Espanol, there were some pop culture references, there were some football references coming off the Super Bowl. Really good. And we all just have to take a deep breath. This is designed to be a high variability team. Any team that shoots three-pointers for a living is going to be high variability compared to other teams. And then we have sorry for the big words, we have a bimodal distribution, meaning we have a clump of very young players and we have a clump of really old players, and it's just weird. We are the weirdest team in the league. So the young guys, put in TJD, okay, if he has a great night, that's a good decision. If he has a slow night like young players do, it's a terrible decision. Look at what happened with Kuminga. Sometimes he plays like a 28-year-old, established star, and other nights, what are you doing, dude? And he did all of that tonight. So it's just a tough time. It's the second night of a back-to-back. We're playing a lot of games in a row. We're working through grief. And we're actually, though, getting more traction than we've had before. Things are getting better. Let's just enjoy even the weirdness and the oddness. I don't think this is the year we win another championship, but maybe if we do everything right, we can set ourselves up for success in the next year or two with Klay. Clay's change in attitude helping. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Junior. Appreciate the call. I did want to correct something I said earlier. Looney, of course, did play. I was looking at that fourth quarter box score only. Did not play in the fourth at all. So Steve Kerr seemed adamant to not play Kevon Looney in that fourth, and I think that you could agree with. I mean, honestly, maybe playing Looney slows down the pace a little bit, which would have helped the Warriors. But this did not seem like his kind of game. But a younger, more athletic big, someone who's not actually quite as big, but does give you a little bit more size like TJD, I think could have had an impact in this game for the Warriors. To our caller's point, I do think that, the comment about Kuminga, I mean, Kuminga had that really bad turnover late in the fourth quarter, and after that he got pulled. He did not close in this one, and considering how he played, I'm not going to argue with Steve Kerr about that one. I think the conversation for Kuminga about me, or for me, has gotten so much easier to have because, I mean, he's proven that he belongs. You know that even if Kuminga has a poor night, at least relative to his expectations, and he set his expectations so damn high considering how well he's played lately, you can just kind of, let a game here where he's not quite as good as normal, like just let that roll right off your shoulders. Like, not every single night is... Kuminga doesn't have to prove it to us anymore. Like, we know who Kuminga is, and, he's not reached his full potential. You expect him to only continue to get better, but every single night isn't lack of a better term, like a legacy game for Jonathan Kuminga. He does not need to give you 25 and 7 on 80% shooting every single night. One, that's crazy unrealistic. But it's not as if we're going to come in and after one night of Kuminga playing a little bit subpar, not saying he was bad tonight at all, but if Kuminga has a bad game, we're not going to react and say, like, you got to cut his minutes. Like, Kuminga has proven more than enough to be comfortable in his role, in his position as a starter, as one of the most important players on this team, that I'm not going to overreact to a subpar game. And by subpar, I don't mean bad by any stretch. It's just because he's been so good for so long now for the Warriors that it's not at all time to overreact to just this game tonight for Kuminga, where he did make that really bad pass that led to a market-in three that cut the lead to 5 in the last handful of minutes of that fourth quarter. We don't need to dwell on that too long, in my opinion, about Jonathan Kuminga. All right, let's hit a break on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. It's Mark Randy with you. We got a lot more to get to. The Warriors, they earn a win over the Jazz 140-137. They survive in Utah as they head now into the All-Star break, one game over 500 at 27-26. We'll hear from Steve Kerr, who has addressed the media in Salt Lake City after this game. That's coming up on the other side. Also, we got a handful of calls to get to. Mark, you're on the way next. Also, Dino, I see you. We're coming to you on the other side as Warriors Wrap-Up continues. The Warriors earn a narrow victory in Utah, 140-137. More Warriors Wrap-Up next on 95.7 The Game.
In order for small businesses to thrive, they need to be smart, efficient, savvy, staying ahead of the market at every turn, finding ways to do more with less, and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes their way. That's why Comcast Business is introducing the Small Business Bonus.
10 from beyond the arc, a season high, 32 for number 11.
Now back to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
And again, it was Kevin Dana filling in for the great Tim Roy here on 95.7 The Game and doing a great job, by the way. That was Klay's 6th three of the night. He would make one more. He finished with a season-high 35 points. 13 of 22 from the field, 7 of 13 from downtown, also 6 rebounds and 2 assists. He had all those points through 3 quarters. He went scoreless in the 4th as the Warriors turned into chaos for the Warriors offensively in that 4th quarter. They only scored 20 points after they scored 36 in the 1st, 48 in the 2nd, 36 in the 3rd, and only 20 in the 4th quarter. They had 120 going into the 4th. They score 20 in the 4th, and they hold on for a narrow victory, 140-137 over the Utah Jazz. The 4th quarter was anything but pretty, but a win is a win. The Warriors now above 500, both in total and on the road. By the way, the Warriors 27-26, 13-12 on the road, which means currently they are a better team away from Chase Center than they are at Chase Center. Believe it or not. Yeah, it's surprising. Believe it or not, the Warriors are a better team away from Chase Center this season than they are at home, which makes absolutely no sense. Last year, the Warriors won only 11 road games all season. The Warriors have won 13 road games already this year. They could have easily lost this one. The 4th quarter was a mess, but they find a way to win 140-137. Okay, back out to the phone lines we go here on Warriors Wrap-Up. We got Steve Kerr coming up in just a little bit. Also, I did read a Klay Thompson quote from postgame that I do want to share with you. That's coming up in a little bit as well here on 95.7 The Game. But first, it's Mark in Millbrae. I know Mark wants to talk about the fourth quarter issues for the Warriors. Mark, what's up? You have the floor. You're on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah, what's up, man? It's what we've seen, unfortunately, all season from the Warriors, and why they're sitting in the position they're in right now, being a play-on team. They close out the majority of these games, they wouldn't be in the sitting position they currently are. Luckily, tonight they barely escaped because they did everything once again to lose that game, as we saw last night against the Clippers. But fortunately for them, it bounced their way. The Jazz just had some great looks. They just didn't knock them down. So that happens sometimes, make or miss league. And fortunately, it more times than not, it hasn't gone the Warriors' way this season. Tonight it did, and this was huge because you needed to beat Utah, because Utah is the one team that can catch you. And luckily now you have a couple games advantage on them, and you have the head-to-head clinched season on them. So at this point, you're the Warriors. You're looking up at the Lakers right now. I think they're, about a game out? And it's more than likely, they're barring some miracle, they're probably going to be a playing team. You want to make sure you can overtake the Lakers because you want the playing game to be at Chase Center as opposed to LA. But just so wacky tonight. I love what I saw from Klay, and I think Klay has got to recognize he can thrive. To me, he can be an elite six-man, and this is potentially what we could see out of him going forward if he could just put his ego aside, because he's going to be there. He's going to be, regardless if he's starting or not, he's still going to play a majority of the crunch minutes, as you saw. So you could see what tonight is just an exhibit of what he can be as a sixth man, because he's still going to play probably 30-plus minutes per game. And I just love the way that he thrives, and he can come in with the second unit. And as we saw tonight, he can just take over a game and be the number one scoring option of the team instead of trying to force a lot of shots as he's done majority of the season and the last season. And I think that's the role he's got to recognize. But I think the hugest factor tonight was Draymond. That's rare. You don't really see him get an offensive production like tonight. They needed that, and that was huge out of Draymond. 23 points, that was massive out of him. Wiggins was pretty efficient, and Curry didn't really have to have his big scoring game tonight because a majority of the other players were so efficient. So I know it was a sloppy once again, but I think we're just going to have to deal with the fact that that's how the Warriors are going to win. But this was huge. They needed this coming off that Clippers loss, especially against a team that's chasing you in Utah. And to get this win, going into break, coming off a back-to-back was critical. And hopefully they're going to use this time to rest up, and the stretch run here with about 25 games left, they can start making a run and hopefully catch maybe a 7-8 seed if possible. But hell of a win, hats off to them, even though it was sloppy as hell. Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I mean, a win's a win. And to your point about the standings, the Warriors 27-26. They have distanced themselves from Utah a little bit. The Warriors alone in 10th, which is the final play-in spot in the Western Conference. Utah is 2.5 behind the Warriors. So the Warriors have a little bit of cushion in that final spot in the play-in, and the Warriors are a game and a half behind the Lakers for the 9. They're 3.5 behind the Kings for the 8, 4 behind the Mavericks for the 7, and then Phoenix and New Orleans are tied for 5th and 6th. The Warriors are 5 games behind those two teams. So you got a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room behind you to stay in that 10th spot, to stay in that final play-in spot. But you don't have a ton of ground to make up, to jump a spot, to jump a couple of spots. But if you are thinking about further than that, it is going to take a hell of an effort down the stretch for the Warriors. And Mark, your point about Klay Thompson, it does bring up the quote that I was referring to, that I was teasing just a little bit ago. I do want to read it to you. So Klay Thompson, if you missed it, came off the bench in this game for the first time since his rookie season. The last time he played in a Warriors regular season game and did not start was March 11th, 2012. 727 consecutive appearances that were all starts. That streak was snapped tonight. Klay Thompson, post-game, told reporters in Utah that Steve Kerr talked with him this morning about coming off the bench. Klay said, quote, More importantly, I realized I'm going to play a lot of minutes, so you have to let go of the ego when you think about coming off the bench. I thought of Manu Ginobili. That guy has 4 rings and a gold medal, and he came off the bench his whole career. You pair those comments, you pair what Klay Thompson said at halftime of the game today, when Klay had a really good first half coming off the bench. He said on NBC Sports Bay Area that it was nice to come into a game, the back end of a back-to-back, with, quote, fresh legs. He liked it. You pair these two statements from Klay Thompson, his performance tonight, with what he reportedly said last week about being open to a smaller role if that means retiring as a Warrior. And it really does seem like Klay Thompson is open to conversations and open to actually changing the norm around here. And I feel like the general perception around Klay is that he's this stubborn guy. He's a veteran. He's so upset at the world for the injuries that he doesn't want to let go of the rope. But I think his comments, the way he's speaking, maybe some of the shots that he's taking on the court say otherwise. But for the most part, I think the vast majority of Klay's actions are telling you that he's willing to take a smaller role, a less important role, to potentially come off the bench moving forward. And Steve Kerr has said that he's going to stick with Klay coming off the bench at least for a little bit of time coming out of the All-Star break. He wants to give it a real try. And it's a credit to Klay Thompson for being willing to accept that role. And it's why last night I came on here and I said, yeah, Klay had a terrible game, but I think he's getting a lot more crap than he deserves. I think we've seen from him signs, moments, showing that he's willing to take a lesser role, and I think tonight was another step in that right direction, and you absolutely love to see it from Klay Thompson. Now, what's kind of ironic about Klay today was what has gotten Klay in trouble all season. It's been shot selection. He's been too aggressive. I mean, how many times does he take that fade away from the corner, which is a really low percentage shot? What about how many times does he catch and shoot a 3 when he's 1 for 7 from deep? And you're just thinking, Klay, move the ball. If it comes to it, we can get you that shot later in the shot clock, but let's try to get a better shot first. That's what's got him in trouble. It's bad shots in bad moments, forcing things when he's not feeling it. Almost all of the shots he took tonight were those same shots. The only difference is he's making it. Like, shooters are going to shoot. It's what Klay does. And I get that at times it sinks you, but at times like tonight, it's also one of the main reasons that you won the basketball game. It's just kind of what you're going to get from Klay Thompson. And if at this point in his career, you can't accept that, then I don't know what to tell you, because that's who he is. It's why he's one of the greatest shooters of all time, probably the second greatest shooter to ever live. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's won 4 championships. It's what makes this guy great. It's what makes him great. He's not going to let go of that, but he does seem to be willing to take on a lesser role, and that is huge news for the Golden State Warriors. It really is. Although I will say, without Klay in the starting lineup, I have serious questions about this team's ability to defend. Not because Klay is some otherworld defender at this point of his career, but because the option to replace him is Brandon Podziemski, and I am absolutely terrified of a Steph Curry-Brandon Podziemski duo in terms of defense. Tonight was an example of that. It's not good defensively. And I don't know how much longer the Warriors can keep turning to that if that is the way that Steve Kerr goes, which it does seem like that is the way that he's going. All right, back out to the phone lines we go here on Warriors Wrap-Up 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. Up next is Dino. Dino's in the city. I know he wants to talk about the fourth quarter issues as well. What's up, Dino? You're on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, what's up, Grandy? Thanks for taking the call. I want to talk about the fourth quarter, but also just maybe the second half of the season. It's funny, I actually missed the entire game. I had parent-teachers night at my kid's school, but dialing in and listening to your recap and all the calls, it sounds like much of the same. And so I'm kind of chuckling here because it's great that we got the win, but a lot of the symptoms are familiar of, and reminiscent of a lot of the losses that we've had. And as I look at the box score, there's some similar things and themes that I'm seeing, like low Trace minutes, maybe too much Dario minutes, no Moody minutes. And so I think, it kind of sums up for me what the big challenges so far this season have been. A lot of the other callers have touched on it too. Kind of the 3 C's: continuity, consistency, and coaching. And maybe not in that order. But, with injuries and this Draymond suspension, obviously we've had a lack of continuity just in terms of the lineups. It seems like we're starting to at least tinker with some of the youth movement, which is great, and we're starting to see what we can get out of guys like Kuminga and Podziemski early in the game, and certainly making up for the challenges that both Klay and Wiggs have had. But then, with that, you get a lack of consistency with, the youth movement, right? And so, obviously, you have to accept that that's part of the kit and caboodle, right? You guys have to learn and grow and play through their mistakes, and we've seen that with Kuminga, seeing it with Podziemski. But that's a tough coaching thing, right? That's probably tough to manage, and that kind of brings me to the last thing, which is how much of kind of this theme of giving up blown leads, it comes down to player execution, and how much of it comes down to coaching, and specifically the coaching staff. I mean, not just Kerr, but like situational coaching, right? Taking the right timeouts when needed to cut a break from the other team when you've got a lead, for example, or sticking with the hot hand, right? There's been times when we've had guys like the prior game, Moody was kind of playing, he was playing all right, and then he got pulled, didn't play after that, right? Or knowing when to, cut your losses short, right, and pull guys. It must be tough for the coaching staff, but I am feeling like, again, some of the theme has been, we've been missing on a lot of that this season. And again, injuries, Draymond being out, there's a lot of excuses or reasons, but I'm real curious. I think the break probably couldn't come at a better time, because I think we've seen enough where, there's hints at kind of where we need to go. And I'm real curious, how do we form our identity in the second half of the season, and specifically our closing identity, our fourth quarter identity, right? It's got to be defense. It's also got to be like, what's the lineup that closes, that we can count on defensively and offensively to close the game out, to make the right plays, limit turnovers, et cetera. So we've got a lot cut out for us in the second half. I'm excited, actually, to see it based on these last few weeks, and hopefully we can figure out those 3 C's and make a good run into the playoffs.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Dino. I think you have a lot of good points. I'm with you. I'm excited as well. This team is definitely playing better basketball of late, despite what happened in the fourth quarter of the last 2 nights. It could have easily been 2 consecutive wins, and that would have been 7 in total for the Warriors going into the All-Star break, and it could have been 9 out of 10 instead of it's 8 out of 10, which is nothing to scoff at, and they're still playing their best basketball of the season. And when you consider everywhere that they've been over the last 2 weeks, I agree with you, Dino. The break comes at a good time for the Warriors. I think they're running on fumes. That was probably part of it in the fourth quarter, although if you are fatigued and exhausted, it would probably be a little bit easier to slow things down as opposed to play at the pace that Utah wants you to when they're trying to put together an epic comeback in that fourth quarter. But just listen to some of these numbers. The Warriors, since February 1st, so 15 days, including today, 9 games, the Warriors have been on 8 flights. They've traveled 7,200 air miles in 7 different cities. And then you consider what happened in the fourth quarter last night, and you consider what happened in the fourth quarter tonight. 44-28 in favor of the Clippers last night, 35-20 in favor of the Jazz tonight. Like, this is a Warrior team that I am sure is just exhausted. Now, unlucky maybe for Podziemski, he gets to fly tonight out to Indiana because the Rising Stars game is tomorrow to begin All-Star Weekend. Steph Curry I'm sure he's not traveling out there tonight, but he's got to get out there as he's participating both on Saturday and on Sunday for All-Star festivities. Everyone else gets to do whatever the hell they want during this week off, which is going to serve the Warriors really well as they get ready for the second half of the season, the unofficial second half of the season, because the Warriors are 27-26. They've played, 53 games now, so you've got 29 games left. The Warriors are well past the halfway point. The unofficial second half starts a week from tonight for the Warriors when they're at home hosting the Lakers. All right, back out to the phone lines we go. Want to clean up one more call, and then we will hear from Steve Kerr, who has addressed the media postgame after the Warriors' 3-point win against the Jazz in Salt Lake City. Up next is Steel Toe in San Mateo. Steel Toe, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
All right, Gandhi. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was a little confused, like everybody with the closing lineup, not just from last tonight, but even yesterday's game with not just the closing lineup, just all of overall rotation. I really kind of don't get it. It's almost like I can't really take Steve Kerr serious anymore. Like I almost feel like he wants to play around and experiment, have a 5-guard lineup and have Gary Payton II at center and Klay Thompson at power forward, Pajensky at shooting forward, and see if Chris Paul and Steph Curry can be the guards. I don't know what he's doing with the rotation. I just can't take him serious. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Steel Toe. I mean, what I will say, and it's been this way all season, honestly, and it kind of goes back to something that Draymond said about his suspension. You remember what he said, was it over the weekend? I think on Saturday, when he said, honestly, my suspension and my absence turned into kind of a good thing because it forced Steve Kerr's hand into playing Jonathan Kuminga. And now look at what Jonathan Kuminga has turned into. The reason why the Warriors got this major positive in Kuminga is because the Warriors had nowhere else to turn. Now, maybe that angers you about Steve Kerr, that it took that in order to get this out of Jonathan Kuminga. And if you are feeling that way, I would understand where you're coming from. However, the larger point is the Warriors and all of their injuries. Chris Paul was out. GP2's missed multiple stretches. Moses Moody even missed a stretch. And he was playing really well before he had that hamstring issue that cost him a handful of games. All of those injuries and Draymond's suspension, it really shortened the Warriors' available players. And it made things easier. Honestly, for Steve Kerr, you didn't have nearly as many combinations. You didn't have guys on the end of the bench frustrated because they weren't getting minutes because those guys weren't available. So to Steel Toe and to all you Warrior fans out there who are frustrated with rotations and lineup decisions and minutes allocation night to night, all I will tell you is buckle up because you're going to be frustrated the rest of the season. If this Warriors team is healthy, you're going to be upset. It's just the way that it works. And I see some chatting right now on the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Cameron says he's upset about Kuminga's minutes tonight and his shots, only 6 shots in 24 minutes. He says, this is a joke. I feel like he's going to be back on the bench soon. Cameron, first of all, appreciate you tuning in and commenting. I don't think you have to worry about that. I do not think Kuminga is going back to the bench. What I will say, though, Kuminga's safe. He's done enough. He's going to be playing 25-plus minutes, probably more like 28-plus minutes every single night moving forward for the Warriors, and oftentimes in the 30s because he's been that good. But for everybody else, like, where are Chris Paul's minutes coming from? Is he going to play for Brandon Pajemski? The few minutes that Moses Moody is getting right now, he was a DNP tonight, but he's played a little bit here and there. When Chris Paul comes back, it seems like Moses Moody has absolutely no chance to get into the rotation on any sort of consistent basis. I know people have been enjoying Lester Quinones's minutes. That's going to go bye-bye when Chris Paul returns. Like, The Warriors have so many players that when they're out there, you feel like, hey, they can give you something, but there's just too many to realistically play on a consistent basis. So all I'm saying is if you're frustrated, you are going to continue to be frustrated. All I would say. Because the Warriors have too many guys to play on any kind of consistent basis. Are you going to take away Podziemski's minutes? He's playing really good basketball. Not saying Klay's going to score 35 points every single night, but it's not like he's going to be playing 15 minutes a night. You want more from GP2? I think the Warriors could always use more from GP2. Where are those minutes coming from? It's why I thought the Warriors realistically would consider making a 2-for-1, a 3-for-1 trade at the deadline. Not necessarily to get some superstar, but just to kind of pare down the rotation a little bit and solve some of these issues. Because there will be frustrations if this Warrior team stays healthy. But, I mean, all in all, I guess that is relatively a good problem to have. I mean, Steve Kerr was asked about it on this very radio station last week. He was asked, does having too many players that feel like they deserve consistent minutes, is that a bad thing? And he said, well, it's much better than the alternative. And if you're winning, I mean, a guy on the end of the bench, is he really going to be that upset if the team is performing well? Like, that's why Kuminga was so frustrated, and even Moody early in the season, because they weren't getting minutes and the team was struggling. If, say, Moody isn't getting minutes, say Quinones isn't getting minutes, but the team is winning on a more consistent basis, like how frustrated can they actually be? And even if they go to Steve Kerr with that frustration, what's he going to say? Sorry, guys, I can't change things. We're playing really good basketball right now. That is going to be a story for the rest of the season for the Warriors, I guarantee you. All right, it's Warriors wrap-up on 95.7 The Game. We got to hear from Steve Kerr coming up in just a minute, and we will. But first, I wanted to remind you that you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Let's hear from the coach, Steve Kerr, earlier tonight addressing the media in Salt Lake City after the Warriors' 140-137 win over the Utah Jazz. I'm sure talked about Klay Thompson, talked about the ugly fourth quarter, and a whole lot more. Let's hear from the coach. Here is Steve Kerr earlier tonight from Salt Lake City.
The decision to bring Klay off the bench, when did you make that decision? How did your conversation with him go? What did you think of the way he responded tonight?
I've been thinking about it, and the lineup with Brandon out there with Wiggs, J.K., Draymond, Steph, it's been by far our best lineup, and BP connects the game, he rebounds, he does some things that really help the other guys, and I've been thinking about it, decided to do it tonight, and talked to Klay this morning, and I thought he handled everything beautifully. The way he came out, determined, competitive. That's not easy, to come off the bench for the first time in, 11 years. You probably know. That's difficult, but Klay's a champion. He's one of the most competitive people I've ever met, and he responded accordingly and played a great game.
You plan on continuing to bring him off the bench forward?
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's permanent, but as I said, I like that lineup with BP and the other four, and Klay coming off the bench gives us a lot of firepower. We'll give it a little look, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Another game that comes right down to the wire. You feel more satisfied with the victory, more disappointed with the way it closed? Just how do you feel winning 8 of 10 going into the rest?
Yeah, our guys were exhausted. We've had so many games, and got in at 3:30 in the morning last night, and for them to respond the way they did, bring the energy, play the game that they did. Obviously, we've made a lot of mistakes down the stretch and gave them a chance, but I'm much more satisfied with the win than anything. And then we'll look at the tape and show the guys all the rebounds, the box outs we missed, the turnovers. We had 13 turnovers, which is a great number, but they led to 29 points. They were all pick sixes. We were literally just throwing the ball to them over and over again. And can't do that in the modern NBA. I mean, everybody shoots a million threes, and it feels like a 10-point lead these days feels like 5 did, 10 years ago. And we're up 19 and, mid-4th, and it doesn't feel close to over, and it wasn't. So it's a new league, and we have to shore up our decision-making and execution, because one play can literally shift everything. Team hits, 5 threes in a row, and game's changed.
You mentioned the fatigue that you guys are feeling. I mean, how nice is it to have some time off now after all the stretch, all the road games, all the travel and whatnot?
Great to have some time off. I think all the guys have really earned it, and it's a good chance to just breathe and get away and take their minds off basketball. And we're in a good spot. We're above 500. We've come back with an opportunity to make some hay, and we're excited about it.
Well, that's Steve Kerr post-game in Salt Lake City tonight after the Warriors leave Utah with a narrow win, 140-137 over the Utah Jazz. The Warriors down 27-26. Steve giving us our second football metaphor of the night. We're talking about the Warriors with a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. Just run the ball. Kill some clock, right? Take shots late in the shot clock. Steve Kerr saying the number of turnovers, not bad as we talked about earlier, but it's the kind of turnovers. Steve Kerr said pick sixes. The Warriors are throwing pick sixes out there, easy buckets off of turnovers. The Warriors committed 13 turnovers, and the Jazz scored 29 points off those 13. That is more than 2 points per turnover. That is ridiculous efficiency for a team. Scoring 29 points off of 13 turnovers, that is 2.23, almost 2.25 points per turnover. The Jazz converting at an absurd rate off of Warrior turnovers, and the Warriors were lucky that it did not cost them the ball game here tonight. I talked a little bit about Klay's mindset. I do want to hear from Klay Thompson. I want to play this cut for you really quick. Klay talking about Steve Kerr's decision to bring him off the bench. Here is the Warrior Klay Thompson, who had 35 points tonight in his first game coming off the bench since his rookie year back in 2012. Here's Klay Thompson on finding out he was not starting tonight.
Found out this morning. Me and Steve had a good talk about it. You could do two things. You could pout, or you can go out there and respond. And I thought I did the latter very well tonight, especially no turnovers, and I've missed a few box outs though. But more importantly, I realized I'm going to play a ton of minutes, so you just got to let the ego go when you think of coming off the bench and all that. So, I thought about Manu Ginobili. That guy has 4 rings and gold medal, and he came off the bench his whole career. And I don't think anyone looks down on his Hall of Fame candidacy. He's one of the greats, and I thought I embraced it before tip. I deserved it, really. I didn't respond to the not playing at the end of the game well last night. I kind of took it out on the assistant coaches, and I apologized to those guys before the game. And I think that really let my guard down and let me just be myself out there.
All right. That's a good answer from Klay Thompson, and it's something that we've talked about a lot here on Warriors Wrap-Up throughout the season on 95.7 The Game. For me, and I think this is something that Klay Thompson is realizing, and I think a number of Warriors are realizing this, it's not always about who's the starter. You like to hear your name announced alongside Stephen Curry and Draymond Green before every game, right? You like to hear that. I get it. It's difficult maybe to not want that. We all have egos. I understand. But Klay Thompson, just because you're not starting, and Steve Kerr did say he's going to at least keep trying this out of the All-Star break. Who knows how long it will last? He did make a point to specifically say it's not permanent. It doesn't mean it's permanent. Who knows? It could be, but it's not guaranteed to be permanent. But what matters more than anything else, it's how many minutes you're playing. And Klay tonight played 28 minutes. That's a good chunk of minutes, and he played the most important minutes of the night. He closed. Now, oddly enough, he wasn't very good in those closing minutes. He did not make a shot in the fourth quarter after going on an absolute heater through 3 quarters, specifically in the third alone when he scored 18 in that period by himself. But Klay played well and earned the right to close. And that might be the situation that we're looking at for Klay Thompson and the Warriors moving forward. And I think that's where Steve Kerr has adjusted the most this season. It is no longer just assuming, all right, Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond, they're going to close every single night. I think Steph and Draymond are still in that area, but we've seen a number of times this season, not as much of late because he has been playing better, where Steve Kerr not afraid to say, hey, Andrew, sorry, you're not closing tonight. You're not playing well enough. You did not earn it. You need to earn the right to close by playing well through the first 3 quarters. You don't do that? Sorry, maybe next time. And I think Klay and Steve Kerr are now in the position where they understand that is the approach they have to take with Klay as well. Klay, play well through 3 quarters. Guess what? You'll close and you'll play around 30 minutes a night. If not, well, you might not close this time. That's where we are. And credit Klay Thompson for taking on this new chapter with an open mind. You hope it continues because you're going to need a positive Klay Thompson and a good Klay Thompson if you're going to win basketball games down the stretch, go to the playoffs, and potentially make noise in the postseason. You need that from Klay. So it's so important that the Warriors get that from Klay Thompson moving forward. Because without it, they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance, which is why I understood why Steve Kerr, through so much of this season, was willing to put up with some big-time struggles from Klay, because he knew the Warriors don't stand a chance if Klay isn't at least close to what Klay was last year, right? In January and February, his best stretch of his career. If Klay isn't that, it almost doesn't matter what everybody else does because this Warrior team doesn't have the firepower without Klay Thompson playing that well. So I think this is a really positive development for the Golden State Warriors, and we'll see how it does look when the Warriors come out of the All-Star break in a week. Next game for Golden State a week from tonight at home against the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll see if Klay Thompson plays well, responds to coming off the bench again. Unless something changes, it looks like he will. Steve Kerr saying he's going to stick with it, at least for a bit, out of the All-Star break. The 534 on the Comcast Business text line says, 6th man Klay Thompson, the next force for the Warriors' second unit. I mean, that's the other thing. This is a Warriors bench squad that has been really good this season, but Klay Thompson could maybe give them a little bit of an added oomph offensively. And I think he does have the ability to defend in a different way than he has in his past. He's honestly proven to be a pretty decent defender down low against, small forwards and even power forwards. He can hold his own down there. He's stronger than we give him credit for. So Klay is still certainly very valuable. Very valuable to this team, and I think he's a key. He's a key for the Warriors moving forward. All right, Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. A few minutes left with you. We do have to take care of a piece of business before we get on out of here on 95.7 The Game. We have to hand out our hardest worker of the game, which is brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, who works hard to serve the community. Are you looking for a career in law enforcement? Learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. And I think we do have to give our hardest worker of the game tonight. You know what? This is actually a tougher one than I thought. I was just going to kind of blindly pick Klay Thompson because he had 35 points, 13 of 22 from the field, 7 of 13 from downtown. But I did just get done talking about him for like the last 10 minutes. So I'm gonna pull an audible. Our hardest worker of the game tonight is actually Draymond Green. One of our callers brought it up. You get 23 points from Draymond Green. How often do you get that? 23 from Draymond. He made 3 threes in this game, by the way, all in the first half. I'm not sure Draymond has made a 3 in the second half all season, but he's been really good shooting the ball from downtown in first halves this year. 9 of 14 from the field, 3 of 5 from downtown, had 5 rebounds and 5 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks and no turnovers. Draymond Green was everywhere in this game tonight. 23 points, a season high for Draymond Green. As a result, he is our hardest worker of the game. Again, brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. Warriors win tonight, 140-137 over the Utah Jazz. And they are now 27-26 as they head off to the All-Star break. The Warriors off for the next week. Again, they play on Thursday against the Lakers. That's a week from tonight. There will be a little bit of Warriors action over the weekend, not for the team, but for individuals. Brandon Pajemski tomorrow evening in Indianapolis, competing in the Rising Stars game. Should be fun for Brandon Pajemski. And then Stephen Curry will be competing on All-Star Saturday night, not in the three-point contest itself, but in the fun Steph versus Sabrina one-on-one three-point shooting contest. Sabrina Ionescu, a superstar from the WNBA and a Bay Area kid herself, going up against Stephen Curry. That should be a lot of fun on All-Star Saturday night. And then Steph, of course, also is the Warriors' lone All-Star. He'll be playing in the game on Sunday evening as well. So we have that to look forward to for Pajemski and Steph Curry this week, tomorrow and over the weekend. But the next Warriors basketball game will be a week from tonight, and you can hear it right here on 95.7 The Game. Pre-game coverage beginning at 6 for that 7 o'clock tip a week from tonight against the Lakers. All right, that'll do it here for us on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Shout out to Kevin Dana, by the way, filling in for Tim Roy tonight. Did a fantastic job. Always fun hearing Kevin Dana on Warriors games. Brings a lot of energy to the broadcast and certainly had a lot to be excited about in this game tonight. The Warriors beat the Jazz 140-137. Shout out as well to Chris O'Connell and Sterling Bennett behind the glass. My name is Mark Grandy signing off. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for all the interactions on the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union as well. Thanks to all the texters on the Comcast Business text line. And as always, all the callers here on 95.7 The Game. One final time, the Warriors knock off the Jazz 140-137. They go to the All-Star break with a winning record. How about that? 27-26. Thanks for listening, and have a good night.
We saw the fall guy yesterday.